Hello guys, it's D to the B here, and before I start the review, I figured I would let you know that the first couple of episodes in this massive review do have background noise in it. I do apologize. I was currently on vacation, and where I was hiding to do the recordings had an automatic fan, so every time you turn on the light switch, you go. Yeah, so yeah, you're gonna hear a fan in the background. I do apologize, but here is the review of Monsters at Work. Lots of people will agree that Monsters Inc. is one of Pixar's best films in Pixar history. This film came out in the year of 2001, but to this day, this film still touches a lot of people's hearts, including myself. This film is still so beautiful to this day. And this movie was so popular, we were originally going to get a sequel where Mike and Sully go visit Boo on her birthday, but at the same time, there is a mishap, and when they go visit Boo, they find this old lady in Boo's room. And of course, they need to go around to look for Boo, and they get eventually trapped in the human world. If you're wondering the original title of this movie, it was called Monsters Inc. 2 Welcome to Scaradise. And then we got a prequel in 2013, which not everyone was fond of. I personally liked this movie, but not a lot of people did. The reaction of this film is split. As much as I love these movies, we're not going to be talking about the films today. Because today we're going to be talking about the new series that came on Disney Plus that connects to the great film of Monsters Inc. And in this review, I will be reviewing all 10 episodes. Yes, there are 10 of them, but not the longest series, so it won't take too long. But I'm going to do the most shortest description that I can, so I don't get exhausted, because in the past I have reviewed a whole series and it takes a lot out of me. So hoping with the short descriptions that the video will not be too long. Hopefully. Alright, let's get into the first episode. The first episode starts off at Monsters University with a new character called Tyler Tuskman. He is the most performing person in his class, even broke Sullivan's record. And he is accepted into Monsters Inc., where unfortunately things are changing. And he finds out that Monsters Inc. is no longer hiring scarers and everything's changing. And he was assigned to MIFT, which is the maintenance team of Monsters Inc., which consists of Fritz, Val, which is actually voiced by one of the characters who was in The Office, which I would recommend The Office to older viewers. I will make a video on it eventually. But continuing on, we also have Duncan, for a little bit Banana Bread, which I'll get into that, which Tyler Tuskman has to put up with Mift every single day, especially Duncan, who in the series annoyed me in the first episode. He kind of grew on me. Actually, no, I'm gonna scratch that. Pretty much everyone in Mift annoyed me until like maybe the end. Eventually, he has to go out and take a breather because everything he knew is starting to fall apart. And then at some point, he meets Mike and Sully, and Tyler gives them the idea for the new slogan, "It's laughter we're after." And Mike Wazowski is going to teach a class of jokesters. And that's basically the whole first episode. Alright, let's get into episode 2. Okay, episode 2. Episode 2 opens up with Monsters Inc. mass producing laugh power because it's not enough to power the building. So every single employee, including Mike Wazowski, is overworking themselves. And in the way of fixing the problem, Mike Wazowski drinks this energy drink and gets through all of his tasks doing it. Meanwhile, Tyler Tuskman is in jokester class, learning how to become a jokester. And of course, Mift comes in and visits the class, where eventually he is removed from class because there is a problem going on with the machines. And after the day is saved, Mift returns back to the base where they eventually lose the member known as Banana Bread because of a laugh theory. And that's basically how the episode ends. Alright, to episode 3. Episode 3. So the episode begins with one of the jokesters getting sick and damaging the room, where Mift is then assigned to fix the room before the parents get there. But in the process, Mift suggests to take the kid out of the room, but Mike Wazowski is, of course, against it at first because of obviously what happened last time with Boo. But eventually they do take the kid out, and Mike Wazowski watches over the kid as Mift repairs the room. In the process of Mike watching the kid, he takes the kid to a frickin' baseball game. Like, how stupid do you have to be? Eventually they get the room repaired, the kid is returned, and Val and Tyler have character development and become actual friends. But before I get to the next episode, I have to say this. I have to agree with the sports fan that why would you bring a baby to a baseball game? Like, seriously. A baseball game is one of the loudest places in history ever. Anyway, to the next episode. Okay, episode 4 thus far is my first favorite episode in this series. I don't know. Even though the episode isn't that much, I still love this episode. So, the plot is Monsters University is doing their National Bowling League. But unfortunately, Mike Wazowski cannot do it this year because he has a lot of paperwork to do since he's in charge of Monsters Inc. And in this episode, we meet Mike Wazowski's new rival, Gary, which is voiced by Gabriel Iglesias, which is one of my favorite comedians. I don't know, I just like him so much. And one thing I do have to complain about Iglesias' character Gary is they basically just copied the Mike Wazowski mold. They just took the same mold and they colored it blue and like, bam, new character. They didn't even try making a new design. Granted, it could be budget reasons, but I'm still gonna call him lazy on this. But because of Iglesias, I still found the character very funny. And Mike wants Gary to eat his own words, so he said he's going to form a bowling team, which he relied that on Tyler Tuskman. And he, of course, picks Mift. They practice, but then Tyler discovers that Mift sucks at bowling. But luckily, through the first few rounds, Mift wins in forfeit. The first one was because I think it's the slug guy from university. He was just going really slow. Then there were bowling pin ones, which Fritz actually knocked out with the bowling ball. But then, of course, Tyler Tuskman tries getting a new bowling team, but of course that doesn't end well, and the other team refuses to work because he had betrayed Mift. But then Miff decides to still help Tyler win this for Mike Wazowski. They win the tournament. Actually, both teams win. And then Gary and Mike Wazowski have to have dinner together because that was the reward. And yeah, that's pretty much about it for this episode. I loved this episode. It might be because I like Gabriel Iglesias. But continuing on, let's go to episode 5. So the episode opens up with Fritz going on vacation, and he leaves Duncan in charge. And of course, something bad happens at Monsters Inc. after he leaves, and this new character, which actually has a new design, is sent there to investigate what happened at Monsters Inc. and the entire town. Well, mostly Monsters Inc. And apparently this character has not had a vacation at all. He has worked through thick and thin, no vacations. Which, how convenient. I'm on vacation. Anyway, the new character sends his eyeballs everywhere to find out what the problem is. And of course, when he finds out the problem, the character accidentally gets knocked out, and they send him through the door. And he's there for 2 weeks, and then he comes back as more calm and chill, and gives Monsters Inc. a warning. And that's basically how the episode ends. Alright, to episode 6. Hello guys, it's D2B. All the bad audio is gone. I'm no longer on vacation, so a bit better audio at least. Alright, here's the review on episode 6. So the episode starts off with Tyler trying to get a soda from the soda machine that's in the office, but the soda machine is not responding. Val does a whole bump thing to get the soda out. And of course Tyler tries that, and he impales the vending machine. Later, 2 employees are explaining to Mike that profits for the company are extremely low, and Mike needs to figure out something to do. Conveniently, at some point, he bumps into Val and Tyler, and Tyler mentioning that the vending machine's broken gives Mike the idea to get upgrades. Hey, that's what you want to do when your business is falling apart slowly. Spend more money. That's sarcasm. Don't spend money if you don't have it. And if you're especially in that situation in a business, never do that. Which I will get into later. Meanwhile, Mike is spending money, getting full of foosball tables, got a new vending machine for Mift, giving out money that Sully had been saving in a jar. He was just doing all of that. Eventually, at some point, the vending machine was having problems because Duncan and Tyler decided to have an argument, and then the machine goes out of control, and eventually they try unplugging it, but then it has to be destroyed, so it is. Then it turns out the ending of the episode, Mike had somehow fixed all the problems in the business by spending more money, which never do that. As I said, I was going to come back to this. Never do that in a business. Sure, maybe getting that stuff would put more inspiration to the employees to work harder, but the problem is, if you spend more money when you're in this crisis, you're gonna have to fire more people because you don't have enough money to afford those people, which would also lead to the business shutting. Eventually, Tyler fixes the vending machine that they previously had, and Tyler shows them that he fixed it as a surprise, and the episode is handy dandy. Alright, if anything we need to learn from this episode, anyone, what have we learned? Do not spend money where you are in a situation where you're gonna have to let people go. Never do that. Alright, to episode 7. Here we are to episode 7. And basically, how this episode starts off is that Monsters Inc. does not have enough employees to entertain the kids so they can power their city. So Mike Wazowski decides to bring the students from his jokester class to fill in the positions that they need to produce enough laugh power to power the city. And of course, one of them is Tyler Tuskman, where he is in the middle of a mission for Mift, but he quickly abandons it for the laugh floor. And of course, there is a problem with the doors when he gets there, so he has to go back, and when they fix the doors, there is a bit of a malfunction, and because he was being an idiot and didn't get down from the door when they were fixing the door machine, the one that takes all the doors to the laugh floor or scare floor as it was before. Yeah, he was specifically at the area that he was repairing, and of course, he didn't want to come down. He just wanted to get it done quick so he could go back to the laugh floor, which again was the stupidest thing he could have ever done. And in the process, a bunch of doors come in, and one of them hits him, and he is going towards the laugh floor, where it turns eventually to a door shredder, which then turns to the banishment door. And of course, it's the banishment door that the one and only, yep, this was actually kind of fun to see that character again. And of course, Val tries looking for Tyler. Meanwhile, Adorable and Tyler have a chat, but of course Tyler is scared. Eventually, Val finds him, and they head out and leave Adorable. So they thought. Yes, Adorable follows them, and it causes a whole load of chaos. And Tyler, pretty much the whole episode, has to get Abominable and make sure that no one sees him so he does not get banished. Until Tyler tricks him to getting snow cones for everyone and putting him back in the banishment door. When he goes back to the laugh floor, he feels bad, goes back, brings the banishment door to the laugh floor. Oh, and also, it turns out that Abominable was banished because of finding out about the fear extractor. I forgot to mention that. And then, near the end of the episode, Sully decides to unbanish him, which, that was pretty satisfying. For the reasoning for him getting banished, it seems a little cheesy to me, but I do like how Abominable/Adorable is freed from banishment. That I did like. Alright, let's get into episode 8. I hated this episode so much. And you're wondering, why? What's wrong with it? So many things are wrong with this episode. Whew, this episode made me mad. So the episode basically starts off with Tyler doing a test to see if he'll become a jokester or not. And the process keeps repeating, and repeating. Until the last time where the instructor says, that is your last test ever. And meanwhile, Monsters Inc. is having its annual bring your kid to work day. I forget what it was actually called in the episode, but that's basically what this episode is. And these kids have to be in each group: jokesters, miffed, sanitation, all the different classes in Monsters Inc. And of course, one of the kids in this is, of course, the kid of the instructor. Yay! And of course, conveniently, the kid of the instructor is put in Miffed. And the daughter of the instructor, she is originally assigned to Val until Tyler finds out that she's a part of the group, and he wants to use her to get favors with her mom by making her laugh. I give him another chance and that stuff. This episode is super frustrating, including how he wants to try that to get favors with the instructor so then he could become a jokester. And I know, I can see somebody already in the comments going like, but D to the B, Tyler needed to do... No, don't start. Because him using the instructor's kid to make sure he becomes a jokester is completely selfish. It just is. Of course, he tries laying some jokes onto the kid. Of course, the kid doesn't laugh. Eventually, one of the other kids in the sanitation group is lost, but then they find the kid on the door shaft where it is heading to be incinerated. They eventually grab the kid, and at some point, Tyler gives up trying to impress his daughter and basically says that her mom is the most unfunny person in the world, and then says he doesn't care if her kid reported him to her. And of course, she hears it. Tyler. Okay, here's the thing about keeping things to yourself and behind your back, especially in a room like that, specifically where you are. Make sure the door is closed because of a situation like that. And of course, when she finds out, he's like, I don't care, that stuff. So the kid starts heading towards the door, and of course, when she leaves the door, he gets panicky, like, oh my gosh. So he runs after her. And at the last second, when she's close to the office, he accidentally falls and finds a way to be funny. I think it's like donuts all over his face, if I'm remembering right. And then, conveniently, she laughs. But then, at some point, Tyler admits his mistakes and blah, blah, blah. And, of course, we find out she knew the plan because she's been basically used to this with, like, the scarers. But she said the difference between him and the other people were that he actually admitted it. And then the episode ends with the daughter recommending Tyler to her mom, because of course not. Alright, let's get into episode 9. This is a weird one. So basically what this episode is that Miffed is pretending that Dave is there and it's National Dave Day. And everyone in Miffed is telling Tyler how amazing Dave was when he was around before he was taken to the door shredding shaft. And at one point, the team decides to get not haircuts. Yes, that was the weirdest thing ever. And then it was taking so long, so Duncan said he better feed Brodo, and of course, Tyler obviously offers. He goes down there, he feeds Roto. Roto eventually escapes, eats Dave's hair. Oh yeah, I forgot. They have Dave's hair in a jar. So Roto eats Dave's hair and basically goes around all over the place. And at some point, he tries getting someone else's hair. And that someone was Rose's hair. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention about Rose. Rose is the new replacement for Roz. So, of course, Tyler tries taking her hair. He wasn't successful. Then he decides to go to the former door shredding shaft to get a clump of David's hair, which almost ended in complete disaster of him dying. And when we think he's dead, which he obviously isn't, there is a door that's shaped like the gates to heaven, which that was kind of funny. And we get to see David, and then Tyler wakes back up. At some point, he goes back to Mift's office, and then Rose gives him a piece of her hair. Then Mift comes back. They praise David's hair, but then they immediately realize that it was switched, where then Tyler admits the truth that he lost the original hair, which Mift was glad that he was honest, and we find out that he did the shredder shaft for nothing, because it turned out they had a whole clump of David's hair because he was a shedder. And yeah, that's basically the whole episode. To episode 10, the final episode. So the final episode opens up with Mift setting up the new slogan, "It's laughter we're after." Then after that, we immediately go to the laugh floor where they're trying to get enough laugh power to power the city, but unfortunately there's another power out. Then after the intro, we get to see Roz again, and she tells them that laugh power isn't working, and we are considering to switch out Monsters Inc. for Fear Tech, which if you've seen Monsters University, you will know what Fear Tech is. And of course, Mike and Sully were not too happy about that, so they make an exchangement. They must get enough laugh power to power the whole city in one day. So they need to figure out how they're going to get all that laugh power. Meanwhile, in the Mift office, Tyler comes up with an idea for a bigger canister to hold all the laugh power. At some point, Mike asks Tyler to come up, and him and the lady who checks over the monsters to see if they're funny or not, they say that they want Tyler in there because of what happened in, I think it was episode 8. You know, the episode that I couldn't stand. Then Tyler and the guy who put him in Mift in the first place start exchanging paperwork so he can go up to the laugh floor. But of course, Tyler is a bit skeptical because he has gotten used to Mift. And he is only going to help for one day. which is what he thought. And then we do the whole laugh floor thing, and we get joke after joke. Tyler does the donut thing. Originally, I was for this, but I gotta nitpick this for a second. The second time watching this series, me and my family actually considered this as a problem. This, as I said, this is a bit of a nitpick that not every kid is gonna think Tyler's act is funny because everyone has a different sense of humor. Yeah, that's the nitpick that I have for this part. So they keep doing it, making people laugh over and over again. Eventually, the laugh floor is out of canisters, which of course the two maintenance people from the first Monsters Inc., you know, the shut up, man. Okay, these guys, I'm sorry, I suck at their impersonation.
Get him, Mr. Solomon, you idiot! It's Sullivan, not Solomon! What? You're messing up!
I don't know what makes those guys so funny. Even when they first showed up in the first episode of Monsters at Work, they just made me chuckle because they were one of the best parts of the original movie. Anyway, they find a canister from the garbage, which, of course, completely backfires. Then they get the prototype canister, which is a whole lot bigger. And, of course, near the final seconds, Mike Wazowski is able to get all the laugh power Monster Inc. needs. And Mike Wazowski is impressed with this new canister, and he wants more of them so he can get all the laugh power into the canisters so they can power the city. And then Mike Wazowski makes Tyler a official jokester, but Tyler is skeptical because he's gotten so used to Mift. So, of course, Mift lets him go and let him become a jokester. And then after that, the episode leads off where the first Monsters Inc. left off. And, of course, the episode then ends with Mift now being upstairs and Val being his door person. I can't remember what it's called. And then the episode ends with Tyler going into the door and making a kid laugh. And that's the end of season 1. Was Monsters at Inc. good? It was alright, in my opinion. There were some problems with the show, but I still kind of enjoyed it. I think it is a good watch. There will be things that you will roll your eyes to, but it's not a bad series. So, yeah. That's my whole review of Monsters at Work. And I give this series a 8 out of 10. Not perfect, but not bad. Alright. Have a nice day, guys.